Are you a sensitive soul? Do you consider yourself an overall benign force in the world? One who isn't interested in mixing with, adding to, or becoming the object of drama? Do you sometimes quietly observe your trusted loved ones, whether a parent, an adult child, a spouse, sibling, or friend, as they berate you? While just beneath the membrane of your whispering thoughts, you hear yourself say to them, "Just get in line with the rest of the cruel, harsh world." Do you recognize that their behavior is entirely unnecessary, yet that you may feel helpless to find the words to defend yourself simply because you didn't expect this individual to blow up on you over some perceived offense? Perhaps this perceived offense is one that you didn't intend, one that everyone you know would consider less than negligible, and certainly not worthy of this scolding, chastisement, or fault-finding session. Does it really matter who's right or wrong in relationships? Or is what matters most the intention not to mistreat one another, no matter what the perceived offense is? People we love are sometimes unpredictable, irrational, and impulsive. Just because you strive to know better doesn't mean you'll always resist being human in the face of some unexpected, though powerful attempt to, apparently, make you feel small, foolish, thoughtless, or as though you have no moral compass. Of course you have a moral compass. Of course you try your best to enjoy a good relationship with others in your life. And you even actively try to stay out of other people's way. You may even be among the least likely in your circle to cause trouble or to mistreat another person. If so, you clearly have a good heart, filled with goodwill and plenty of gentleness, traits the world desperately needs more of. In your own quiet way, you truly are part of the solution, and someday this will become clear to everyone you know. Though despite this, it would appear that we just don't always have the same ideas or intuitions about what others expect or don't expect from us. When you, perhaps, have said the wrong words, offered unwanted help, or forgotten to keep a promise, those who perceive your unintended missteps may accuse you of harboring the most insidious motives or character flaws. You may approach them to find them waiting. They start practically checklisting these character flaws or motives off, as though you've had it coming for a long, long time. But this is your loved one. Surely they can't mean this, right? They claim to. And so, they engage in exactly the behavior that every human being on the planet has indulged in since the dawn of souls. Understandably, this extreme discomfort brings you to tears, or maybe rage, and maybe you want to let them have it too. Yet, there's a part of your being that prefers to not get into the tit-for-tat thing, and that's the part that will lift you out of this dark, turbulent sea of conflict. Consider why you're hurt. Is it really because they're right, or even dead wrong about you? Or could it be more that you're being criticized, belittled, and treated as though this is the 15th time you've committed this perceived offense against them in the last month? Maybe it's mostly because you can't get your words out the way you really mean to. The inability to clearly communicate our thoughts, honest identity, and truest sentiments to others is certainly high on the list of circumstances that can cause the greatest suffering in the world. Assuredly, whenever any loved one or good friend raises their voice at you or figuratively yells at you through a text message, they're overreacting. How do we know this? Because clearly you meant no offense. And shouldn't they know you better than this? You've trusted them to know you as well as you know them. Though that trust won't always stop anyone from overreacting. Here we can pause to look at what this situation may feel like for you. Imagine being on a boat in unknown territory, alone, enjoying the scenery, the crystal clear river's fresh air, and the gentle sounds of the wind. At some point you take out a treasured photograph, and there you are, smiling, just trying to gently enjoy this moment, when a gust of wind rips the photo from your hand and lays it on the surface of the water just beyond your arm's reach. After trying a few things, you decide you must get into the water to save your photo. Who'd object to this? You carefully climb out of the boat, keeping one hand on the craft as you stretch your arm out to fish the photo out of the water, tossing it into the boat before you start to hoist yourself back into the boat. Yet, in the microsecond before you do, you experience some sharp sensation of pain around your ankles, worse than ant bites. You escape into the boat to discover that you've been attacked by hungry little fish called piranhas. You're a mess. Your peaceful adventure is ruined. And so you head back to the dock, visibly upset and visibly injured, where you patch up your wounds, which throb as you drive home with your photo and lunchbox. You wonder how this unexpected, even unlikely attack could have happened. And why did it happen to you, of all people? You certainly didn't enter the water rowdily, or ostentatiously, or with the foolish intent of trying to swim among any potentially hostile river life. You, overall, followed the rules, though you were still chewed on by little creatures that neither knew, nor probably even cared, what your intention was. At this point, you probably don't love piranhas, and who could blame you? Though in the case of the piranhas, there's no intelligent being for you to go back to and try to reason with. So, you don't bother to turn right around to go back out to sea and yell at them. Yet when a loved one or friend chews on your ankles for what is to you pretty much no good reason, you're understandably far more hurt than if piranhas nipped you, and in fact would probably have preferred for this attack to have been carried out by mean little hungry fish than by your loved one. The difference here is that it's often far harder to escape the deep, turbulent current when a loved one, as opposed to a stranger, has immersed you in their belittling anger or even hostile accusations. Whatever it is that you blurt out in your own defense feels frustratingly off target, but you're caught up in this cold disagreement, perhaps feeling like you're on the courtroom stand, on trial, where quick answers are demanded of you while you're under pressure to account for your perceived offense against this beloved person or persons. That's never, ever a comfortable situation to be in. You may have long trained yourself to respond to the occasional spontaneous cruelty of the greater world, because you realized early on in life that you are a sensitive, delicate human being, perhaps even possessing introverted tendencies. Whatever the case, you may have well trained your mind to remember the liberating phrases that you calmly return to those strangers in the world who aren't always very gentle or nice to others. Perhaps you're even bullied or emotionally abused growing up, so you feel like an old pro and you know how to handle this attack, at least in theory. Yet these aren't strangers, but instead loved ones, and they're nipping hard at you non-stop. And worst of all, you keep saying the wrong things to them in response. Rest assured, there is no one alive who hasn't said what they did not actually mean in defense against some unexpected character attack. Instead, especially in the case of a completely unexpected twist of trust wherein someone we know and love goes all piranha on us, it's usually standard for us to find it impossible to convey what we really want to say, which, once we've recovered from the initial surprise and shock, is the opposite of what our mouths have spit out, because we don't want a fight. Oddly enough, we don't always go directly to those words, and we don't want to be verbally mistreated, though there too, we just don't say what we feel. We get theatrical, perhaps, because it feels like we're under pressure to make the next theatrical, hysterical move in a surprise game that another person has spontaneously started with you. Then we get flustered by our own theatrics, further exasperating our own distortion of our communication because we can hear ourselves saying more of what we don't quite mean than of what we really do mean. We're just trying to keep up, caught off guard, all while simultaneously hating every word our overreactive lips manage to generate in response to our attackers' unprovoked, anxiety-producing spill. Why they've done this is a matter left to their own honest confession. You may have your suspicions, but those can't seem to fish you out of this undercurrent. What is it then that you really want to say to them? And most importantly, how do you want to say it? You'd prefer a calm discussion over this madhouse mess any time. And you want for both of you to be able to talk to one another, not as tribal rivals from the 0th century. Chances are that you consciously want you two to share a comfortable degree of openness, to talk to one another about one another as easily as you'd confide in each other about toxic people who aren't present. No, not with a vengeful heart, not with more toxicity, but with truly healing words, with honesty, mutual understanding, comfort, deep reassurance, appreciation, and even protective encouragement for each other. You already know that this is where the healing from this unexpected disagreement starts. But none of this will happen as long as even just one person here is being belittled, threatened, or accused. Perhaps the bickering isn't finished, and you're having trouble saying the most liberating words you can say. Maybe you can't even remember what those words sound like at this point. These are the words that sound something like, "It's never productive for anyone to berate another," or, "I'll hear you out, fine, but I'm frankly helpless to think clearly while I'm being targeted by these accusations, all this criticism." Perhaps they're not really thinking clearly either, making false assumptions about you, painting your motivations as selfish, foolish, or even vengeful. If they're speed-firing 20 harsh, demanding questions at you, how can you turn things around? If you are truly sincere, they'll know it when you do turn the focus from you to them, asking them the number one question that loved ones hear, which is, why do you find it necessary to try to hurt me in response to what you think is actually happening here? Can't we discuss this calmly and without insisting that the other has some inferior moral character or poor behavior? And if they can't focus on the calmer stream of your questions, then you must ask, why is this not possible? And assert, this has to be possible, or else we won't get any relief. And I'm hurt, and you're hurt, and we could both use a little immediate relief if it is at all possible. They may continue with that list of your supposed inferior behavior, though it wouldn't do you any good to keep responding, dignifying their tactless, cold, legalistic, or even hysterical attack on you. So continue to gently ask, but only if you really mean well and not otherwise, whether they genuinely feel that their unwarm approach in this discussion is helpful, conducive to mutual understanding, or effective at all. As long as there's not a risk of physical abuse, try to get them to contrast their approach with a better approach, not one you'd present as your own, just a more effective one, where two human beings can be aware that neither of them particularly enjoys this conflict, nor does it benefit anyone. Remind them that the first priority is to both settle on a kinder approach, one in which you both remember who you are to each other, why you value one another, and maybe what you've recently enjoyed together. Don't stick around if there is a risk, of course, but otherwise, you both may benefit from trying to solve this kind of conflict that's been ongoing for hours, perhaps even days, as soon as possible, so you may both get relief from the itchiness and iciness of this agony. Chances are that one of you can't muster up the strength to leave the other alone for a few days without having your spirits lowered, preoccupied by this conflict. No one wants this poison to seep into whatever they may do write, or say, and you can't stay in bed for 3 days to avoid spreading this pain to unsuspecting people in your path. And this assuredly applies to your accuser as well. The real bottom line is that if you are genuinely desiring to clear things up and not prove your ego is right, then you're certainly not wrong in trying to get relief for both you and your loved one. To restore the trust, openness, honesty, and above all, awareness that you're both accustomed to sharing with each other. Their manipulation of you is unhealthy, though only you know deep down whether you truly mean to restore the equality you've shared with one another at this point, and not satisfy the ego desire to be right. And if you are in fact genuine in this regard, then you may certainly share that statement with them, kindly, as it applies not only to one, but to both. It can be deeply uncomfortable to wait these things out, to hang up the phone, block messages, or shun one another for days. This isn't only unhealthy for those in conflict, but also for those oblivious to the conflict, since these unresolved, if even minor, conflicts are known to spread like little viruses to others. Sometimes a cool down period is highly beneficial, though if you found this video, chances are it's because you're still in need of relief from a conflict that aches long after the bite. There are other ways to handle this, of course: meditation, introspection, prayers. But relationships are complex, and in relationships, it's not unreasonable for two people to find an honest footing in order to thrust themselves upward from the rushing undercurrent of conflict and reach the river's surface together. We want things to return to normal. Quite naturally, we're going to try to return the relationship to a comfortably warm temperament. And as long as we're trying, we might as well try our best through returning our focus to one of the most important aspects of relationships, which is in how we talk to each other. That's half the battle. In the end, we may agree to disagree. Though, what are we if we are not accepting, patient, and genuine? What are we if we are not comfortable with sharing our honest feelings in our truly preferred, gentle ways? What are we if we are belittling others, not treating others well, and denying that we are, on some level, always kindred spirits? No matter what, the most effective relief we can get from any conflict with a loved one or close friend comes from the one we are in conflict with, and they too will be best relieved from their agony by the other party. Why does conflict resolution feel so liberating, invigorating, so restorative to our sense of security and our overall sense of well-being? It's because we can't replace one another.